I think the most important thing we need to do is liberate our major cities outside London. London has shown what you can do if you really take charge of your own agenda. Manchester is not far behind. They too have led on that area. But the other cities need also to have both the same freedoms, but also the same willingness to take risks, if you like, to be able to make their own decisions, bring forward their own finance, and they need to bring forward their own civic institutions.
I think we're in a situation where we're facing extreme cuts. I certainly am, and I think they're a false economy. I think they'll undermine the basis of our future economic prosperity. Local government are the custodians of public health, absolutely integral to the education of our workforce. So I think that first and foremost we must reevaluate that relationship, that financial relationship.
The key thing in Birmingham that we're absolutely determined on in terms of boosting growth in the city and inclusive economic growth, it's about housing, and it's about building housing at scale and at pace over the next 10 years. We've got to build 50,000 houses in the city. If we don't do that, that will be the single biggest thing that will hold back economic growth in our city. Absolutely no question about that.
So there wasn't anything about the panel discussion that was particularly surprising. I did share a little bit of frustration, and it's not against the panel or the event. It's just a frustration that certain communities, BME, women, have been talking about this for a long time, non-inclusive economic development and growth. So it needs to be approached with a heavy dose of humility.
I thought what was surprising about today's discussion is actually some excitement and some positive attitudes. There wasn't what I sometimes get, which is people complaining, whinging about that it's not fair, I don't have enough money, or indeed complaining that all these voters voted for Brexit. I thought there was much more a sense of we can make this an opportunity. It was great.
I think there was very much a sense that post-Brexit that really the future is about cities and city regions, even city-states perhaps, can we say, and that the freedoms, I think, that need to be given to those city-states, if you like, is actually going to be crucial to the UK economy thriving after Brexit. I think the important next steps following today is to try to ensure that the 10 core cities have a real voice in industrial strategy in particular. That's one of the things that the 10 core cities gave the industrial revolution to the world in this country, and it's really, really important that they have a voice in what is now an emerging new industrial strategy from the government.
I think we've all got to do our own piece, actually. There is not a next step. There are next steps for everybody, both in terms of working with the various commissions that we're on. I do infrastructure, Stephanie's doing inclusive growth. We've all got to push to make sure that the momentum that we've built up over the last 10 years or so, actually we continue that and we don't allow ourselves to get distracted. So the next step is not to get distracted. Keep on the agenda.
I think the next steps is amongst the core cities as well, to really say that this has to be central to what we do. I think as I raised on the panel, we need to, when we're thinking about inclusive growth, we need to be really clear on the cost of non-inclusive growth as well. That will sharpen minds. The phrase was made, if we don't have inclusive growth if we don't have growth. But my question is, what's the price of non-inclusive growth? It doesn't come cost neutral. And I think when we begin to measure those things as well, then it begins to drive it. My concern is that inclusive growth could be seen as a moral good and nice to have. I'm saying we need to define it financially as an economic essential.
I think the private sector needs to come to city leadership and ask them to assist actually in what institutional powers regional and city governments have to enable, not necessarily to underwrite, but to enable house building to take place and economic development to take place, and that city councils in return should see themselves as being anchor economic institutions in a region, not just the providers of public services.